Hello, team. Welcome to another community chat. Thanks for being patient this past month. My voice has been hit or miss, as you know, or may not know if you've seen it on Instagram, just because I'm learning that high elevation training impacts my vocal cord dysfunction. Vocal cord dysfunction is what makes my voice sound a little bit unique, I guess, compared to probably everyone else in the world. I feel like, but yeah, it's one reason my voice is sometimes a little grovelly, and it's just something I've had since I was a kid. But I wasn't diagnosed until 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, something like that, after I moved to Denver and went and saw a professional at National Jewish, which is the best respiratory hospital in the nation. So he had me diagnosed within 5 minutes, no joke, after he did my little scope. So just a heads up, in case any of you have exercise induced asthma that is never made better by inhalers or steroids or things like that, that is an indication that it might not be exercise induced asthma, and you should probably go and get a second opinion. I've been wanting a second opinion for years, so it wasn't until I moved here that I was able to do so. But just letting you know, because that is something I have seen in a couple of my athletes over the years. One of them being a former pro that I work with, and she also shared the same situation, and she had the similar diagnosis and just the process to get diagnosed. And I just I don't like knowing that people wait for an answer. Okay, so listen to yourself, get a second opinion, be your own advocate. All right. Okay. So now that my voice is working and is cooperating a little bit more, let's talk about fueling before a ride and after and during a ride and all of this stuff, because I feel like this is really important to just making sure that you have the energy that you need on and off the bike. Okay. But of course, this challenge, and kudos to everyone. You have one more week left in the consistency challenge, just 1 week, and then we start a new challenge in early August, or the second week of August, first week of August. But you know what I mean. But now, fueling before your ride. So, fueling before your ride, just as a nice little recap, try to have a nice balanced meal with some protein, carbs, and fats. Again, just a balanced meal, usually about 2 to 3 hours before your ride. That's going to be the prime time for you to have that meal. And the reason for that is because you want to be able to give yourself enough time to digest. This is not the time before your ride. This is not the time to have a big ass salad or something that it has a lot of greens or a lot of vegetables that aren't necessarily starchy. Potatoes are fine. Those are good starchy vegetables, but not a good time to have like a ton of broccoli and cauliflower and things that are going to make you gassy or your stomach upset or something like that, and that could impact your digestion. Okay, so you want to give yourself 2 to 3 hours for digestion purposes, and then also to allow yourself to have a regular basic meal, a balanced meal. And again, palm of protein, that's going to be an adequate portion of protein, or even half of that. And then, of course, cupped hand of carbs, starchy carbs. So that's equivalent to like a medium tuber, a medium fruit, medium potato, rather, not tuber, as well as like 3/4 cup or so of rice. And then, of course, like a thumb or so of fat, just to give you an idea. That could be a quarter or a half of an avocado, some dressing, sauces, oils, anything you might cook in terms of oils. You get the idea. And that's going to be a nice balance meal. Okay. Now, beyond that, in the space of the 2 to 3 hours before your race or before your ride, digest. Have some water. Don't have a lot of water, but digest. Maybe have a little bit of caffeine if coffee is your thing. 30 minutes or so, though, before you ride, that's when you're going to have something that's a little bit more carb centric and a nice jolt of carbs, especially if you're going to be out for longer than an hour and a half or so. You want to actually, plan effectively and make sure that you're giving yourself a little extra boost. And that's just going to give you a little extra boost of glycogen right before hop on the bike and get started on your next adventure or training ride. So, for me, for that, I usually do a bowl of cereal. I know that sounds so, you're like, Jen, you're a nutrition coach, health coach, and you're saying cereal. It makes me happy. It is a little bit of a reward before I do the bike ride, because I'm rewarding myself. I'm making time for myself to do my training and doing my bike ride. It digests very easily and it tastes really good. So I'm a big fan of the Graham Crunch or Graham Cracker Crunch, or some sort of Graham cereal from Cascadian Farms, just because I like the taste of it. It's not as sweet as like Graham Cracker Crunch, or their cinnamon. Cinnamon Crunch, I think it's called. I don't even remember, but they're cinnamon cereals. They're tasty, but that's what works for me. It could be completely different for you. I know on race day is going to be a little bit different. Race fueling is a little different. I have a gel. I'm a huge fan of Never Second. Never Second tastes really good. It has a light flavor to it. It's not a heavy flavor and it's not thick. Morton and other, brands out there have a little bit of a thicker feeling to them and like thicker mouthfeel. And I just don't like that, because I have vocal cord dysfunction. I already have difficulty breathing anyways when I'm exercising, despite breathing exercise and things like that. Then I don't need something that's making like my throat feel even thicker. Never Second does this for me. Plus, I personally like Spring Energy tastes delicious. However, they've been inadequate in terms of their carb content in their nutrition content, nutrition like labeling and things like that. They've actually been found by a third party source that, they don't have the appropriate number of carbs. So unfortunately, they've been fooling all of their clients and customers for a few years. They, I think, supposedly have since changed the formulation and have updated everything. And now I think they might be involving a third party tester just to make sure that they're factual in their reporting or their nutrition label. But that's personally why I don't use Spring Energy, just because they're shady AF and they've already broken my trust. So I'm just not going to support them any longer. But they do taste really good. So if Spring Energy is your thing, then great, do it. But for me, Never Second, I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. So, take with it what you will. But I think Never Second and Flow Formulas, they have some of the best formulations out there in terms of like just something simple before your ride. And then also during, if you need something that's a little bit easier to digest and is just very portable and has minimal, waste, then those are great choices. So right before a race, especially 30 minutes before race time, it's when I pop one of these. It's 30 grams of carbs. And there you go. I am golden. Or I have some cereal, maybe a little bit of fruit. Other options could be like a little bit of Greek yogurt or Icelandic yogurt with a little bit of granola on top, or some fruits and honey, berries and honey, banana, whatever. Okay. Now, that's before you ride. During your ride is when you definitely have the potential of entering Bonkville. Okay. So if you've already, though, set yourself up for success by nailing your pre-ride meal, kudos. You're already at a good start. The next thing is during your ride. So if you have a ride that's 90 minutes or longer, this is when you're definitely going to want to start fueling every hour. Now, that being said, let me outline some stipulations here. So every hour, this is where it's going to vary for a lot of folks, but a minimum of 30 grams of carbs. That's why these are 30s. This is a minimum, and it's also easy. Well, I'll talk about it in a minute, but it's also easy for you to get 30 grams of carbs down than trying to like pummel, 60 grams for crying out loud all at once. And yeah, that can cause a little bit of gastric upset and distress. And we don't want the poopies or anything like that while you're on the bike. But every hour that you're on the bike, beyond an hour and a half, okay, that's when you're definitely going to want to start fueling. And I personally, if I know that I have a bike ride and I'm out on this bike ride and it's 3 hours long, I don't wait until I hit an hour and a half to start fueling. I personally know what works for me, so I start fueling that first hour. Usually at minute 45 or so, or minute 30 even, I'll go ahead and do my 30 grams every 30 minutes. So 30 grams is the minimum per hour when you're on the bike. 60 grams is going to be a little bit more friendly, probably for most people, especially when you do start to build up and your stomach gets used to it. And, great, you're going to have rainbows and unicorns. Okay. For me personally, I did not have to build up. I did have to build up when I started to do 90 grams of carbs per hour, especially when I was racing more competitively years ago. That was what worked for me, was like in the 75 to 90 grams per hour. That just worked for me. But I was also really lean. So I was leaner than I am now. And because I had a lot more muscle, I mean, I still have muscle on my frame now, but like I had even more muscle then. Because I had more muscle, I did require more carbohydrates. So just to let you know, for those of you out there who are leaner or who have more musculature on your frame, You are going to require a little bit more carbs because you're burning through the muscle glycogen so much more quickly and effectively, because it is such an easy source. Glycogen or carbs are going to be the best source of strength and energy for powering that bike. It's just carbs are the easiest energy source, and there's a reason for it. Um, I know that the Tour de France just happened, but keep in mind the Tour de France athletes, and a lot of folks will talk about how they sometimes train low but race high. And the reason that they're saying that is because they train a little bit lower carbs so that way their body can start to manage, becoming a little bit more fat adapted, and their body can actually burn through fuel, or fat as fuel, which is great. Oh, I have the try our recycle folks are coming right now, so I apologize for the background noise. But man, they're being a little loud back there, but I'm grateful that they're here. I will go ahead and say that you might hear that tagline a lot, like, hey, train low and race high. So that means that they're training on low carbohydrate intake and racing on a high carbohydrate intake, because then, hey, they're using that energy for like those 21 plus days on the bike in the Tour de France. And it can work. Not every athlete actually does that. Every athlete, more or less, especially now, with current knowledge and current science, they usually train, with carbs. So again, it's up to you and what you want to do. Becoming fat adapted can be slightly painful, and you will notice a dip in your performance. And that's just because it's going to happen because you're not depending so much on carbohydrates as your main fuel source. So it's fine. You just have to be patient. And I would not recommend doing that while you're racing. Okay. While racing, you should be doing a little bit more carb centric training, just because, again, it's the easiest source of energy. Okay. But ultimately, 30 to 60 grams per hour of on the bike fueling is going to be necessary. But again, some folks will need 90 plus grams of carbs per hour, and that's totally fine. Carbs, that doesn't mean that you have a bottle of maple syrup or honey and you're just downing it while you're on the bike. You can do that, but like I mentioned in some of the habits, that can, and also on a recent podcast episode, that can cause some upset stomach. And that's the only reason why modern day gels are very popular. Okay. And the reason I say modern day gels is because I don't know about you. I used to be a long distance runner. Yeah, believe it or not. I'm a sprinter by nature, but there's something about endurance sports that really appeals to me. And I find it intriguing, maybe because I sprint well, like sprinting is my strength, and power sports are my strength. So like Olympic weightlifting, things like that. But I like the slow strength and I love slow endurance. So if you relate to this, let me know, because I want to know that I'm not alone. I just like the challenge of endurance sports. But back in the day when I was, more of a long distance runner, I would do the cliff shots and like, I rode for Cliff Team, so I rode for Lunatics. So of course I had a lot of like free swag and free, carbs basically galore. Those chews, which I cannot eat anymore. Even now, I just tried them actually about 2 months ago. The Cliff Shot chews. Oh God, they taste waxy to me now. Now that I've had other just higher quality stuff. But if you like those things and they taste good to you, then by all means keep using them. But modern day gels, like Never Second, like Flow formulas, like all of these, right? I don't have all of mine here. I have my little feed set bag. But you know, Precision Fuel. Precision Fuel is another good one from the UK. Phenomenal. Um, the modern day gels have just better taste, and they're called hydrogels. And because they're called hydrogels, that basically means they are water based. So that's why they don't have that funny mouthfeel that like Cliff Shots can sometimes have, or the popular like gels of like the 90s and early aughts. Okay, but the gels that have been released, excuse me, oh my goodness, excuse me, in the last like 10 years, they're just going to taste better. They're going to have a little bit better of a consistency, just because again, science is evolving. We're learning a lot more, and we're learning a lot more formulations. Now, even though I'm saying 30 to 60, possibly 90 grams per hour of carbs, you want to ideally look at what the carbs are constructed of, And like I mentioned earlier, it's ideally it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio of like maltodextrin or glucose. So maltodextrin or glucose to fructose. So 2 parts maltodextrin or glucose to 1 part fructose. So just something to kind of think about. And the reason for that is because that's going to be ideal to help with digestion, to help with you being able to tolerate those carbs more effectively. Now, I know some folks, when I did a poll online, they did respond with the fact that they love like the maple syrup shots and the honey, stingers and things like that. And those are great. Those are going to be ideal. But I will say if it's straight maple syrup, you do want to, because that's like, straight like freaking glucose or whatever, you do want to include a little bit of like fruit sugar, so maybe have something that has a little bit of honey in it, which is a fruit sugar, or have fruit itself, banana, a half banana or something to help with digestion. And the reason for that is because your intestines, your stomach receptors, or we do have receptors rather, that help with the absorption of these various carbs as you're eating. And the reason that we can get gut rot and the reason that we get an upset stomach, generally speaking, other than obviously being sensitive or having an allergy to whatever you're eating, is the fact that you're not eating the 2-to-1 ratio, because you're eating straight glucose or you're eating straight maltodextrin and you're not having any fructose, because you need that little bit of balance in order to help prevent any type of gut rot and just upset stomach, because your stomach is going to be very finicky and selective the longer you're on the bike and longer out in nature and the longer that you're performing or riding or whatever. And appetite can change, appetite sensitivity can change, and your tolerance to even want to eat something can change. So that's why I'm here gently reminding you to, hey, try to get a little bit of both, get a little bit of maltodextrin, which this has maltodextrin in it, and fructose in it. And sort of flow formulas as well. This doesn't have any powder in it, but these are my reusable flasks. So talk about eco-friendly. These are reusable. You can wash them. They work so well. They're only like $5, $6, a little bite valve, and you just squeeze. There is the potential of getting some stuck up here at the top, but you just use your thumb and kind of plunge it through, chew it, bite it, squeeze, suck, whatever. But bite and suck and squeeze. Sounds kind of funny, but these work so well. And I even put Never Second in my Flow Formula gel flasks, and they work phenomenally well. They do take a few minutes to clean because you are going to hand wash them. They might actually be dishwasher safe, but I don't trust. 10 do not trust. I have a little bit of trust issues with things possibly melting in the dishwasher. But these are great. These are the flasks that I talked about. There's also flasks that do come with powder that you can try. This is a sample. Full disclosure, a friend of mine who's a new riding buddy does own Flow Formulas. This was gifted to me, but I bought these. I bought all of the flasks I have. I have like 8 flasks. But please know, like, she's given me samples of a couple of things to try, again, just disclosure because I want to be transparent. But the things that I've tried from Flow Formulas, I just want to go ahead and, high fives. High fives to them. They make a really good product. This is going to be Flow Formulas. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I know several of you do have food allergies, whether it's a corn allergy or gluten or just any of the variety of allergies that we can have nowadays. The founder of Flow Formulas is celiac. And that's important to say because this in other products do have corn and things like that in them. That's part of what maltodextrin is. It is a corn substance, which I've talked about, in a podcast episode, and I'll link that here. But it's just important to give you options. I want everyone to have options regardless of what their status is or status is in terms of like tolerance and allergies. Okay. So Flow Formulas is really great, especially if you do have a little bit of a sensitive stomach. And this stuff is so good. So just a heads up, it tastes really good. But again, I have been given free samples to try. But I'm so grateful that she did give me those free samples because, oh my God, it's so good. And I will go ahead and say, like, I know we're not talking about hydration, but this electrolyte replacement mix, chef's kiss. It is literally one of my favorite hydration mixes. Now, I will go ahead and say it doesn't have the carb replacement in it that other brands do, like Carbo Rocket and stuff like that. Even Scratch, like Super Fuel or whatever. So just a heads up for Super Carb. Scratch just changed the name. It's kind of throwing off my game. But 30 to 90 grams per hour of carbs. Ideally, if you have a wearable device or an Apple Watch or you wear a heart rate monitor and your device does give you information based on, a little bit of a summary on how many carbs or how many calories you burn on average an hour, great. You're going to take that number. So say you burn 500 calories an hour. You're going to take that and you're going to divide it in half. So, just in my example, it's going to be 250 calories per hour. That is what you want to consume every hour. So kind of figure out how many grams of carbs that might be. Let's do some math. All right. I know I could probably do this math in my head, but I don't trust myself. Again, trust issues. But 250 calories. Okay. You're going to divide that by 4. And the reason for that is because, there's 4 calories in every gram of carb. That means you're going to need 62.5 grams of carbs every hour. Okay, so that's a perfect example, and that's probably going to be about where a lot of folks are. Exceptions are going to be professional athletes, people who are incredibly lean and muscular. Okay, you might require a little bit more than that. So again, that's just an example, but take that. If you want a little bit of a ballpark, great. Do I recommend that you start with 62.5 calories or grams of carbs per hour? Absolutely not. Build up to it. So start with 30 grams per hour and then build up to it over a few rides. Okay. So that's the calculation there. Now, while you're on your bike ride, this is when you do want to not have, fiber. You don't want to have a lot of fiber. You can have potato. That's fine. I know the big thing that Europeans eat are potatoes. If you've ever ridden with a European, they're real big on having like salted potatoes and maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese on it. It's really cool, and they wrap it in foil. Um, that's fine, but just know that the fiber in the potato might upset your stomach a little bit. So that's why it's usually advantageous to have something that's a little bit simpler, sweeter, whiter. Okay, so just something to think about. Okay, because I don't want you to have an upset stomach and be like, Jen, I curse you, Jen. Why are you telling me to eat these carbs? No, I just want you to be fueled. Now, after your nutrition or after your ride, this is when you want to focus on replenishing your glycogen that you've lost in your muscles and maybe even your liver, because your liver stores some glycogen as well and fructose. But fueling afterwards, this is when you're going to want a combination of some protein and carbs. Okay, those are going to be the 2 things that you're going to want to include. Now, protein, you don't have to go absolutely bonkers over, especially after a bike ride. That's not when you need like 60 grams of protein, for crying out loud. But at least 10 to 20 would be great in terms of like 10 to 20 grams of protein at a minimum. And then, of course, having more carbohydrates, ideally, just a serving of carbohydrates. So like half to a cup or so in size, just roughly, in terms of rice or potatoes or whatever. Okay. Fruit's a great thing. Oats. I'm real big on oats. But these are, of course, suggested minimums. Might need a little bit more for some people. But this will just help boost your recovery a little bit more effectively for after your bike ride. So you can start to really recover effectively post ride, not feel super depleted, and then, of course, focus on bedtime routine and staying hydrated once you get back home after your bike ride. Okay. But that's going to be your ABC steps in terms of pre-ride, during your ride, and then post-ride. And actually, hold on one second. Let me just pause for a second. I'm going to walk out with that recovery mix real quick that I have in the drawer. At least I think I do, because I want to give you a little bit of an idea here on what you can put in use for recovery. And Tailwind makes a good one. So does Carbo Rocket. I actually have a fresh bag of Carbo Rocket in terms of recovery drink and things like that, because this is something that will help with your, boosting your recovery because it does have protein in it, but then also just kind of the proper portions. I will go ahead and say Carbo Rocket, it does contain coconut in case you are allergic to that. So it does have coconut in it. And it does obviously list that. Now, I know, for some folks, what you're going to want is just a little bit of protein at a minimum. And that's why I mentioned, about 10 grams of protein. Like this one has about 8 grams of protein for a scoop, right? Excuse me, but the carbs are 23 grams, so it has that portion correct because you don't want to wait. You don't want to have too much protein after your bike ride. And I didn't put this in the lesson. But generally speaking, you don't want to overload your protein after a bike ride. And then underload carbs. You actually want to do the opposite. You want to have more carbs because your body is ready. You've already depleted your glycogen stores in your muscles. That is when your body is ready to reabsorb muscle store, like glycogen in your muscle stores rather. So I want to make that abundantly clear in case I didn't make it clear previously. But again, I would say aim for right around 10 grams protein minimum, 20 if you can handle it, and if you can digest it and absorb it and feel like you can chew it okay. And then more carbs than you think you need. And I would say like 20 grams of carbs is a good minimum, but it's going to be like a 1-to-2 ratio there. So 2 parts carbs or 1 part protein, 2 parts carbs, generally speaking. Sometimes even folks will recommend a 1-to-3 ratio of 1 part protein, 3 parts carbs. Again, you can't really go wrong with either of them. And Tailwind also has a recovery mix here. They're going to be a nice little source for a lot of folks. If you are a Tailwind fan, and I know some of you are Tailwind fans, they are from Colorado. So of course, a lot of us in the group are big fans of Tailwind. And of course, like Courtney Dahlwater. Dahlwater. Why can I not say her name right now? She has an endurance fuel. So this is not for recovery. This is for on the bike, but it's powder. It has like 80 grams, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, no, 50 grams of this. Okay, so 1 packet is 50 grams of carbs in this. And then it has 630 grams of sodium, milligrams of sodium, not grams. Oh my God, that would be too much. That would be dangerous. 630 milligrams of sodium, but 50 grams total carbs, no protein or anything like that. Total sugars are 50. So it is flat out 50 grams of carbs and 50 grams of sugars. But it's cool because it's the Dalwater watermelon line. I just love it. It's such a great name. And plus Courtney, if you don't know who Courtney is, she's a local Coloradan. I think she lives in Leadville, but she actually used to teach at a school here in Denver. My neighbors run that school, and it's an all-girls school. And I've met Courtney on a couple of occasions. She's just a rad human, like just such a cool human, and of course, such a phenomenal athlete. She's an ultra distance runner, so ultra marathon runner, and I mean, she's tough as nails, and one of the best ultra runners in the world, both male and female. So that's pretty cool. But she has this flavor named after her, and sorry, I kind of fangirl a little bit. Like I talk so highly of other people, and hopefully that's you know I don't know, not ridiculous sounding to you all watching this video. But of course I have my contacts in, so I can't really read very well. So I'm showing my age a little bit. But again, it's 50 grams of carbs in this. It does have some ample sodium in here, but I'm trying to look. Okay, so it has cane sugar and dextrose. So it has glucose. So that's going to be your main source of carbs. And I'm just reading the ingredients. Very, very small ingredients. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Maybe I can have you all read this. All right. But it has glucose as the main source, cane sugar. Okay. So that's going to be a little bit of fructose in there as well. And then, of course, natural watermelon and lime flavors and things like that. So, this is going to be another great option of having a little bit more of a balanced approach to the carbs that they're selecting for making this a really good fuel source on the bike as well. There are things, there's like Stroop waffles, there's Enduro Bites. I will say Enduro Bites is great. I know the owner, Brian, and he's a phenomenal guy, like has PhD in nutrition and really just knows his stuff, but he has phenomenal ingredients. And a lot of these ingredients, all natural, it is gluten-free. But it's very friendly on the gut in terms of like a chewing food. Okay. Something that you actually have to chew. This stuff, you're going to get tired of eating this stuff. and drinking this stuff over a period of time. So that's why you want to have some other fuel source that you might have to chew just to give you something that's a little bit more appealing. Now, you're not really going to be able to eat these effectively every 30 minutes while on the bike for 10 hours if you're doing a long distance course or something like that or more. But they are something to kind of break up your gels. And that's the next thing I really recommend that we didn't necessarily dive into for this habit sequence this month, but it can make a real big difference. And just to let you know, some of the fuel sources here. So Adriatic figs, so it has fructose in it. That's fruit. Rice flour, raw and unfiltered honey. Again, like there's your fructose, but it does have rice flour and then brown rice syrup, and of course some dark chocolate. And these things taste good. The fig and dark chocolate is my favorite flavor. But again, this is going to have some glucose with some fructose in it. It won't necessarily be probably the exact proportions that you need or ratio that you need, but that's okay because this is something that helps break up this, okay, just to give you a little bit less flavor fatigue. So that's what happens when you're on the bike for a long period of time is you do start to get a little bit of what we call flavor fatigue. And with flavor fatigue, that just means that you're not going to feel the desire or want to eat or drink. And that is something that you want to avoid because if you get tired of eating these, and believe me, I love the passion fruit flavor with a passion. But I do get tired of these after like 4 hours. I'm just like, okay, I kind of wish I had a different flavor. So I vary between 2 or 3 flavors on a long distance run, just to give you a little bit of a tip. So avoid some flavor fatigue. Have some things like, pretzels. Have some things that you just enjoy eating, fig Newtons, whatever it is for you. If it's the Enduro Bites, great. Have those ready for you and in your pocket or in your backpack or something like that or waiting at an aid station, have a little bit of a half a banana or a quarter of a banana, whatever they have at the aid station that you enjoy eating. And then have some chewy foods with, what else you're eating. Now, do you have to have gels on your bike rides? No, you don't. If you don't like gels, you hate gels, and you also don't want to spend the money on gels, you don't have to have gels. Just feel, okay? But just know that if you're having things like straight maple syrup or straight sugar products or things that are very fibrous that can possibly upset your stomach and can cause you to have a little bit of gut pain or gut rot or just loss of appetite. Okay. And that's why you need to experiment and kind of figure out what works well for you. All right. So that's all I've got for you today, friends. I have talked about everything in terms of pre-ride meal, during your ride meals, your intra-ride meals, and then post-ride recovery and meals. And again, also Skratch. I didn't have a bag of Skratch, but Skratch also makes a really good recovery mix, and it's spelled Skratch. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I've paid for this stuff out of my own money, but I'm just letting you all know, like, hey, this can work really well for folks. And these are options, and there's so many great companies out there. Come on, this is horchata flavor. Like, who doesn't want horchata flavor? Like, one of the best flavors in the world. But there's something for everyone. But I think right now it's just a matter of learning to experiment, being open to experiment, and seeing what works for you. Now, I do really recommend, and again, I'm not sponsored by thefeed.com, but check out thefeed.com. It's just a nice portal for you to try a variety of different flavors. Now, Never Second, the gel that I love so much, is no longer available on thefeed.com. Never Second has gone and done their own thing and is now only available through their direct website. But professional athletes out in the world who are professional mountain bikers and the most winningest mountain bikers use Never Second, and they do have discount codes that they usually share on their Instagram profiles fairly frequently. So let me actually check to see if that is a possibility, because that is something that you could potentially, use as a source. Hold on, let me look up. Sofia the Villa. Sofia Gomez Villafane. Ooh, no, she doesn't have her discount code, and neither does her partner, Keegan Swenson. I mean, again, two of the most winningest mountain bikers, especially endurance mountain bikers out there. And they both do win gravel events time and time again, but sometimes they will share their discount codes on there. for Never Second if you want to try that. Sorry, I don't have one. I'm actually thinking about reaching out to them and seeing if I could potentially become a sponsored athlete or help or something like that, just because I do want to start to extend some discounts to you all. But yeah, that's all I have for you, friends. If you have anything to add a comment to this video once it's posted on YouTube, and I would love to see it and respond. And if you have any questions, let me know. I didn't get any questions this month, which is like a first. Everybody, I had a handful of folks respond like, "Hey, I don't have any questions, but just kind of curious, maybe what you use on the bike." So that's why I brought my feedback out, my feedback out. To help you, I sound like a horse, but to help you, kind of see in my bag, literally. And this is a bag that I'll sometimes just throw in my car if I just can't decide what I want to eat. And I have a variety of stuff in here. Like I even have like mini stroop waffles from Honey Stinger. They're so good. These are so good too. I love sharing food. Can you tell? I love sharing, but just like tips. And again, this is what works for me, and these taste good to me. They might not taste good to you, and they might taste like dirt and absolutely awful. And that's okay. I'm not going to take it personally. Um, all right, I'm going to end this before I start talking again because I get really excited about snacks and food. But I hope you all have a beautiful day. Let me know if you have any questions about anything I've shared. Know that I'm here for you. I know it's also the summer lull right now, and a lot of us are biking a lot more. I know I am as well. I'm not doing a ton of strength training, but I'm doing some accessory work like my Copenhagen planks, my single leg stuff, my single leg deadlift, my step ups. Like I'm still doing that. I'm still working my upper body just to keep me nice and strong. But here's to Leadville being done for me in about a week and a half from today. So I'm so excited because I'm going to have like just more bandwidth and more time to have fun rides with some of you, and then also just to have more bandwidth to like make more videos and everything. Because yeah, this training has been like a part-time job lately. Anyways, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll catch you in a couple of weeks for our next little session. All right, so stay tuned for that.